Welcome to Let's Talk Books Unscripted. This is episode 13. We are back. Katie is back from Michigan. She just got back this afternoon. So, this is our series we're doing, episode 13. This is unedited, unscripted. Just, two people who love books talking about books. We each have two books to talk about, and then we're going to answer a question that we got on the YouTube comments that we thought was really good. So why don't you tell us what you're drinking and tell us how your trip was.
Okay, so we are drinking something that I brought back from Michigan. So I went with Corey's mom and sisters, and one of the places that we went to before we got to Mackinac Island, so that's where we ultimately ended up. But in Mackinac City, we went to this place called the Dixie Saloon. Or I guess I think it was just the Dixie Saloon, but they say it's from their brewery. So they do brew their own beer. So that was really fun. This one's called Hazy Enough. So I got like a big, what's it called?
Growler. It's a can.
They have growlers, at places too. And those are quite large. So I brought back, just this large can that we could share. Since, Corey didn't get to go. So I wanted to bring back a couple different beers from there. But that's always fun. So just like how we love to go to like local coffee shops when we travel and bookstores, of course, another thing we do like to do if we can is find like a local brewery and try their craft beer.
It's good. Yeah.
So that was fun to bring that back. So that's what we're enjoying. But I just went for it was like 3 nights and basically 4 days total, really. Because Monday was a whole day of travel. I left early-ish in the day. And then, of course, had to be up real early this morning. That wasn't super fun to come back this way, but I guess I would rather have it be where I get back earlier than later, so that's okay. So 2 big travel days, but then we had like 2 full days on Mackinac Island in Michigan. So if you've never been, it was very, very nice. I would love for Corey and I to get to go back someday together because he would enjoy it too. But a lovely island, no cars on the island, so you literally go on a carriage with horses to travel around, or you're on foot, or you bike. So my mother-in-law and sisters-in-law, we did an 8.5-mile bike ride yesterday around the island. Very scenic, very fun. Got to stop in a local bookstore, so I did find a bookstore.
Of course.
And we checked out like a couple shops. Otherwise got a lot of reading in. So we'll definitely touch on that with the 2 books that I'm going to talk about. So I was very excited about how much reading time I got. We sat by the pool. Got to youth out my kids. So that was a bonus. It was a great time. It was a very magical island. It literally felt like stepping back in time. That's what it felt like. Just with the horse-drawn carriages, and like the hotel was very luxurious. The Grand Hotel is where we stayed for the 2 nights on the island. They have like a whole bunch of other hotels and bed and breakfast options as well, but the Grand is like the nicest and fanciest option.
It looks fancy.
It was very cool. There was a movie filmed there too, so that was kind of fun to learn. And inside the hotel they have like pictures and just like tidbits of information from the movie, so that was pretty cool to see, and I'm gonna want to watch the movie. They actually played it on our coach bus on the way back, but I wasn't really fully able to pay attention because I was reading my book and it was difficult on the small screens that they have on the bus, so I couldn't really get a grasp on it. So maybe Corey will watch it with me one of these nights. But I believe they filmed the whole thing, or at least the majority of the movie at the Grand Hotel. So like inside it and on the grounds. So
that's cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. And it was very nice of his, his parents paid for the trip. So that was very, very generous. It was a good time. But I'm glad to be home. We can get back to our regularly scheduled bookish content. And it was good to see the kids. I can be done talking about that and we can get to it.
All right, cool.
So
So I know I brought up last episode that I was starting a new book, but today I actually finished this book.
I was so proud when he texted me this morning. I was still in Michigan and he's like, I finished my book.
All the Dark Places.
He got through it pretty quick.
This was so excellent. This was such a good book. It was if you're looking for like a whodunit thriller,
And
just with
fast paced, short chapters,
you know, dual perspective, just multiple suspects, just a real guessing game of a book with a lot of twists and just a lot of crazy stuff that happens. I had a couple of times where my jaw was like dropping. You know, they'd leave you with cliffhangers. Yeah, this was such a great book, and yeah, it goes really fast. I went through it so fast. The chapters are really short, and it kind of alternates between the two main characters. You have Molly, who's the main character, and then there's a main detective, Rita, and it's told from both their perspectives, and just really, really interesting.
I think if you remember, if you watched a previous episode, that was my very first Aardvark book that I read. So it's kind of fun that he made it his first one. Sadly, it's like out of stock with Aardvark, but I still recommend that you pick it up elsewhere. But yeah, it's a really good book. So I was really happy to hear that he liked it so much.
If you're into those kind of books, if you're not, you're looking for a fast-paced thriller. And another one of those books where I had no idea who did it. There is a lot of characters. There's kind of 10 main characters in it, so everyone's kind of a suspect, and you're trying to figure it out. And I had no idea. So I was really surprised at the end and just everything that went down. You know, the final, you know, quarter of the book. It was just so crazy, but so good. I mean, I had no problem just, you know, I'm going to recommend this one to a lot of people because...
Yeah, it was very good. It gave me like such a good first impression for Aardvark too. I was like, oh, I'm going to like their books. And I think I mentioned in the previous episode, she has another one as well. I don't want to promise anything, but it's something I can check on. I think that one is actually not out of stock.
Okay.
So her other book, you might still be able to get through Aardvark. And that one's called What Waits in the Woods. And I believe that one released in like January of this year, so not super long ago. I still like this one more, but that one was also very good. And I think I mentioned too that it has the same detective in it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not a sequel. You can definitely read them in whatever order you want. They're not a series.
Yeah.
But it has the same detective. So it's like a different case, different characters, different story.
But same detective. And
she
was a fun character.
And I really I liked her.
Yeah, Rita.
Yeah. So then you'll get to see her again in her other in this author's other book.
Try to get your hands on this book because love to discuss it with you because it's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, should I talk about my first one?
For sure.
Okay, so also through Aardvark. And this one was a pick a couple months ago, I believe. And again, I cannot make any promises on availability on like ones that are previous months because in some months they just really sell out fast. With some of these books, I feel like this one was one that might have sold out. But if you are interested, please comment and then I can make sure I answer back to you. It'll remind me to check. I can kind of go on and see if it is sold out with them or not. But of course, there are other ways to, you know, get some of these books. I just really like to support them, obviously. And it's just, they're always such gorgeous hardcover books, as we've talked about before. But this one was like a real quick read. It's not even, I don't even think it's 260 pages.
Oh, really?
So it was a pretty quick, not even 260, just shy.
Nice.
I started and finished this on the way to Michigan.
On Monday,
So on Monday, I started this and was able to read the whole thing by the time we got to Michigan. So it was funny. I was literally finishing the last pages as we were like sitting in the hotel parking lot waiting to go in. And I was like, I'm not getting off the bus until I'm done.
That's funny.
So I was literally down to like the minute, but I did it all the way there. So it was pretty fun because, I picked this one on purpose because I'm like, that was what I had in mind. I was like, I think I could like bust this out like on the way there. So we had enough travel time and I was able to do it. It was almost like my own little personal challenge. But this one was very good. Expiration dates. It was my first Rebecca Searle, I think is how you say her last name, book, but she does have others. Maybe you're familiar with In 5 Years. They have that on the cover. It says that she's the author of In 5 Years. I believe that maybe was her first one. Other book. Oh no, I think One Italian Summer might be her first one. And then she's written some young adult books as well that maybe I will check out. But I very much enjoyed it. I felt like it started off a little bit slow, but I definitely was invested in the characters. It took me a little bit to connect with the main character on it. Her name is Daphne, I believe. Yes, Daphne. So it has a little, I think you would say it has a little bit of magical realism in it, because what happens to her, it doesn't actually happen in real life. She gets these little like notes that give a name and how long she'll be with that particular person. So it's like there's an expiration date on their relationship.
Huh.
So it's a kind of an interesting concept. It says, being single is like playing the lottery. There's always the chance that with one piece of paper you could win it all. From the New York Times bestselling author of In 5 Years and One Italian Summer comes a love story that will define a generation. So at one point, and it doesn't take long into the book, she gets a name, but no amount of time. And she's used to getting pieces of paper that has the name and how long. Like it could be 5 weeks. Sometimes there was one person where it was only one night. And then there's like 6 months. But then there's one that comes by with nothing under it, just the name. So she's like, interesting. I don't really want to give too much away.
No spoilers.
So I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. Because I didn't go in knowing too much. That's all I really knew.
Is it considered a rom-com?
I wouldn't really call it a rom-com. I'd call it more of a romance.
Yeah.
It doesn't have as much of the funny aspect to it.
Romance with magical realism.
Yeah, but I thought it was very good. And like I said, a really quick read. It definitely just gave me summer vibes, even just from the cover alone. It's got those like fun palm trees on the front. So I think this would make a great summer choice if you're looking to add to your summer TBR. A romantic gem grabs you on page 1 and never lets go. But yeah, I really didn't want to put it down. So like I said, It was like maybe a little bit of a slow start, but it was still enough to keep me wanting to read it. So
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so we have another aardvark book. This wasn't on purpose. We just love aardvark.
We love aardvark, obviously.
I was planning to actually start a different book next for my, I guess, thriller. This one's actually horror, but we just got this book in our June aardvark box, and I had to read it. Like I wasn't gonna not.
He's gonna read it before me.
You have to see the cover. The eyes are the best part. This is by a new author, Monica Kim. So this is her debut book, and just look at it. I mean,
it's so creepy.
So this is considered a horror book, which I haven't really done much in horror. I was gonna wait closer to maybe Halloween time. That's how we like to, mood reader. But like I just have to read this. It looks so good. It's horror and kind of like serial killer, and there's a lot of good adjectives for this book. Suffocating. It's what's the one? Rage is best served raw.
What does the top thing say? Like up at the top, somebody
a tense, harrowing nightmare of a novel.
There you go.
So it might be a little, freaky, but I don't mind horror. So, and this is a pretty quick read too. This one's under 300 pages
little,
as
like
well.
This one. Yep.
So this is a book you can get this month with aardvark.
Yes, that's one of their main.
This is one of the June picks. So if you do use our code, you can get this book for $4. If you want to read this book with me, you can grab it for $4 if you use the code. We'll link that in the description.
We did link it on the last video too, because we talked about aardvark.
But $4 for this, look at how good a quality this book is. That's an excellent deal. You can't feel it through the screen,
so you just have to trust us. But
yeah, and we like to show off the books naked.
Yeah.
But just look at.
I mean, the dust jackets are incredible.
Look at how nice
the
this
actual
is.
Book,
and then the
super
spine.
Soft, and the spines are gorgeous.
So I haven't started yet. I just finished the other book today, and this one I'll be starting definitely this weekend. So I'll talk more about it, and we can fill you the next episode. But it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah. And then the next one I'm going to talk about is Funny Story. I can't remember if I brought this one up on a previous episode. I probably did. Because this one came out in April, and I, of course, snatched it up right away when it when it came out. I went to like a fun, what was it? It was like a release party for her book. I'm just trying to think of how, like, when we started doing these videos and if I talked about it. So if I did, I'm probably repeating myself. If I didn't, then this is new information. But I went to a really cool like just release party for this book with a friend, and we got to do that at like a local Barnes and Noble. It was like 25 minutes, 30 minutes from here. So I consider that to still be pretty local. So I was really excited to hear that they were doing one there, because they're doing them all over the country. And I love Emily Henry. The only thing that would have made it better is if Emily Henry herself was at it. If it was actually a legit author of it. That's a bucket list item for me for sure, to get to meet her someday.
That would have been cool.
I can't remember if I've said this before too, but I actually did get to like my claim to fame, if you want to call it. I did get to ask her a question that got featured on national television, so that was pretty cool. I wasn't in the same room with her, but she did see my face
and answer your question.
Featured and answered my question. So that was pretty
cool. Good Morning America.
Yeah, on Good Morning America.
That was
pretty cool. And that was before I even read this one. So I had read all of her other books, but hadn't read this one yet, because I feel like they aired that like the week this book was coming out.
Yeah, they
it was
were
like
talking.
the day before this book
They
was
were
coming
talking
out.
about
So
the release of this book.
I hadn't gotten to read it yet. But anyway, I've already read this. However, I am now on a reread of it, and I literally only have that tiny sliver left. So all that to say, I almost started and finished 2 books on my trip. So that's how much reading time I got, which was super exciting. So this is the one, I picked it up like a day, or maybe it was yesterday, or maybe I think it was like Tuesday night.
And this one's a little chunkier.
And it is bigger. And I started rereading it, and then I got a decent chunk of reading time yesterday while we were still in Michigan, and then I was really cruising through it on the way home today. But I don't reread books super often. So that was like another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up. But I won't touch on it for too long. But I would be interested to hear, are you a rereader, or are you just like once and I'm done and I don't ever need to read the book again? Just does it depend on the particular book if you think you'll reread it? Because that's another question I get asked. I know we did like a full episode on the whole like library versus buying books, but I have people being like, well, why do you buy them and keep them if like you're probably not going to reread it again?
Yeah.
And it's like, because I like to have them. I don't know, like on the off chance that I might want to reread it again, or I want to lend it out to somebody, or we like to feature them in our reels that we make. So it's nice to have books around. But I just am really proud of myself that I'm actually like, I'm rereading
especially
a book
like
that
this
I loved.
year.
And I did it this fast because I read it in April and it's only June. And I'm already rereading it, and I'm loving it again so much. Like, I just loved it so much that I kept getting jealous of everybody I was seeing post about it, that they're reading it. And I'm like, I wish I could read it for the first time again because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
So now it's my second time, and I'm loving it even more. So maybe I need to do it a little more often, but it's just so hard for me because there's so many books that come out that I just want to read all the new books.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's nice to go back to a favorite, like one that you really loved, and just read it again and remember why you loved it so much the first time.
Yeah, I could see myself rereading books like in a few years.
And here I did it like a couple months later, but
I mean, it is possible. Like, even reading this book I just finished, I was almost wanting to go back and reread some, because it's just like you're starting to like, see things that were happening that like, I want to go back and see if I could have caught on to it somehow.
Right. And that's kind of what I was already experiencing with this one. I was like, oh, like, not that this is a thriller mystery book, but I mean, still things that I didn't necessarily catch the first time I was reading it. And another, I forgot to say right away, the other reason I felt like such an itch to reread this one in particular is that it takes place in Michigan. So I felt like that was kind of a fun, like, I was in Michigan, so it was fun to be reading it while I was there.
That is a funny story.
Funny story. But this is by far my favorite Emily Henry book so far. So
I love it.
So yeah, if you haven't read her yet, I highly recommend it. But now we're going to answer a question.
So we received a question on our last episode 12, from one of our subscribers. So if you have a question for us you'd like us to answer on our next video, we'd love to hear it. I mean, we love to answer questions, and we thought this was a really good question and something I actually never really thought about. This comes from Nicolette 8909. She said, when reading a book, do you imagine yourself as the main character? The main character, or do you feel like you are a silent observer of what is taking place? I recently saw a post where a girl said she imagines herself as the person she is reading every time. I thought that was so interesting because I read like an observer. Very close to the story, but not in it. Curious to hear your thoughts.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you go?
Because when I saw that question while I was still on my trip, I was already like kind of thinking about it. So I do have an answer. I think for me, it depends on which perspective the book is being told from. So like, for example, I can have an example here. This book is being told from Daphne's perspective. So like the main character. So it feels like I'm Daphne in this book.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I'm trying to give a specific example. Because some books you're reading, and it's very much the author is telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
So she's talking about all the characters. Or you have a character in first person talking about their experience in the story. Or if you have like a book with multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
Then I have kind of a hard time sometimes because it's switching characters so much. But when a book is told from like one character's perspective, then I kind of put myself into that person's shoes.
Interesting.
And I kind of see this story from Daphne's perspective. And I feel like sometimes I can relate to her, and sometimes I'm like, not so much. And I feel like I don't know, I've never really fully felt like I have a vivid imagination. I wasn't a kid that like created things all the time or felt very imaginative. However, I feel like when I'm reading a book though, I can like very vividly picture what's happening. And like I have a very visual perspective on it, I guess. I don't know. Like, and I think that's actually a really big nod to the author. If like you can really kind of feel like you're there, put yourself there, and you're picturing, like, I'm picturing what their apartment looks like. I'm literally picturing what the kitchen is like when they're in the kitchen.
For sure.
I'm picturing what this fictional, so she did make up a place in Michigan for this. The place does not exist, but it is in Michigan. But then she does mention Mackinac Island a couple times, which was really fun. But yeah, like, I'm picturing what Waning Bay, Michigan looks like, and it feels like to be there and stuff like that. So
interesting.
I immerse myself in stories probably more times than not, and don't feel like a silent observer. So that's how I would.
You would say yes, like you.
I would say most of the time.
Most of the time.
But it does kind of depend on who's telling the story.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I thought it was a great question, and I never had really thought about that till she asked the question. I would say I'm more of like a fly on the wall, kind of like watching the story, you know. Watching the story unfold. If it's either a romance or a thriller, like I'm the creepy guy peeking in the window. Well, like
she described. So you're more of a silent observer.
Yeah,
that's how she described.
I would say so far from what I've been reading, I'm more of an observer because I'm kind of overseeing what's happening and kind of like analyzing it, or I'm like watching a rom-com book and like, know what's gonna happen kind of a thing. But I thought that was an interesting question. I'll be interested to see if, going forward to some books, if I start to see myself visualizing, like, as the main character. Because I keep saying character.
Trying to sound fancy or something?
I don't know.
I
I mean, I should have been a Mackinac.
Yeah, very.
But something that I thought of with this question I thought was good. Katie and I talk about this a lot. When you're reading a book, because obviously we all do it, we picture in our minds what the characters look like. And this is something I definitely do. And, the authors do a good job of describing them to their best they can. But you will put a picture in your mind of what they look like.
Sometimes it helps when the characters are on the front like this.
That one does help.
So I'm like, oh, okay, so Daphne is a brunette. And of course, but yes, she does have descriptive words about them as well. But like, I don't know. I feel like we talked about this in a previous episode. Where do these kinds of covers bother you or do you like them? I feel like there's somebody on Instagram who's like, I hate these like cheesy covers with these like no-name people. And I'm like, I like it. Yeah. I think it's visually appealing. So she did describe them, but it does help a little.
Well, they do a
good
job.
Like pictured on, it's like, okay.
Authors do a good job. So I'm not going to
picture Daphne as a blonde because she's clearly
brunette. I know, because there's been a couple times where we've been watching movie adaptations of books, and I could tell Katie's like visually irritated. She's like, That's not how
That's not how it was in the book.
That's not how I pictured
That's
them.
not how
or
I
like
pictured it.
in the book, she had blonde hair or
Well,
something,
right. Or
stuff
they
like
will
that.
literally describe a character in a book, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why did they pick somebody who's totally opposite of that description then for the movie or the TV
Yeah.
show? Like,
So I think that's most people do is we'll visualize what the characters look like in our mind, and you probably wouldn't want to see what they look like because you want to see your picture, like you imagine them a certain way,
yeah.
And everyone's
that's how you want it to stay.
and everyone will imagine them a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So really good question. So please, if you have a question for us, please ask because this was fun.
It gives us some more material. I mean, not that we can't keep coming up with some things to talk about, and we love that you want to watch and
people
listen.
have good questions.
But yeah, if there's something that like we maybe did not think about, and we can address it.
Please comment. Please comment with your comments.
Yeah.
So today, big deal. We just hit 900 subscribers. I mean, I was tickled. I texted Katie when she was still traveling, like, we're stuck at 899, but we got the 900th subscriber. So we're 100 away from our goal of 1,000 for the year. Like, we're gonna get there. So if you like the video, please share it with your friends.
Yes.
Please comment and like it. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do, because we'd love to get to 1,000. Maybe we'll give away a book or something to the 1,000 subscriber. I don't know. That could be cool. That could be fun. But thanks for watching.
Thanks
Stay
for watching.
tuned.
Yeah.
I think we'll film episode. This is 13. We'll film 14.
Probably over the weekend at some point.
Yeah. Maybe Saturday or Sunday night.
Yeah.
So we'll see you soon.